Avalanche Podcast. We got Jesse and Rudo coming to you live. Going to be talking about the East Coast when it comes to free agency and all of that. We'll get into that in a little bit. A little bit of news tangentially to the Avalanche today. Alex Newhook signing in Montreal, 4 years, $2.9 million. Does this affect the Ross Colton deal at all?
No, I saw some people talking about that. I don't really think it does. I think the Avs were already pretty far down that conversation road with Colton. I'm mostly just curious on what your thoughts of the deal were for Newhook.
It's a little expensive.
See, I thought it honestly reminded me a little bit of like the Val Nichushkin deal, where I was like, a little bit more than I thought for a little bit longer than I thought.
And you know, if Alex Newhook puts up 45 points this year, Montreal's going awesome.
They feel great.
Yeah, if he puts up 30, they're going
Right. Well, and it'll be interesting to see what role they want him to play, because I was just like going through and reading some of the replies and stuff this morning, and Montreal fans are very high on it, and I get why. I mean, like, look, we've talked about it the last couple of years. One, I don't think the Avs gave up on Alex Newhook, but I thought they moved on from him a little bit earlier than maybe what you would expect. I was always someone who is, pounding the drum of is a second-year player, young guy still, had a really respectable rookie season. No doubt about it, did not rise to the occasion, did not get it done last year. And really, I thought last year was a step backwards for him.
flat at best, sure.
Yeah. If he gets that stuff worked out, I think you're feeling really, really good about 2.9. If he continues to kind of just give you middle to bottom six production, I think it could be hard for Newhook, because if you're going to fit in the bottom half of that lineup, you need to be able to bring more than just some skill and talent.
It's tough, right? Because the Avs are clearly in win now mode. And after last season, they made a clear decision to go out, get Ryan Johansson. They're saying, this guy is our 2C. We're not leaving any question marks about it. Which leaves Newhook in a spot where either he's not playing wing, or rather he's not playing center, or he's the 3C at best. Mm-hmm. And especially, I don't know the details of the negotiation or anything, but if Newhook is saying, I want $3 million to be your 3C, it's a little bit tougher for Colorado.
My guess, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because my guess is that that's probably something along the lines of what those negotiations looked like. Newhook's agent, my client, we really believe that he's going to break out to be a top six player. And the Avs are saying, perfect, we're going to pay him for what he's done, not for what you guys are saying he can do.
Yeah.
And that would maybe understand, or that would help make sense of why they decided to move on from him. I don't know. I thought the deal was interesting. Initially, the return. So this is the other side to it too. If Newhook doesn't go beyond what he's been in Colorado, even if it gets back to his rookie year, a first, a second, a prospect, and $3 million per year for 4 years, that's a lot that the Canadians have invested in Alex Newhook, and before he's even stepped on the ice.
The Canadians need him to be successful.
Right.
On the Avs side of that, today, Ross Colton's a better player.
Yeah.
So, which the Avs use the second to flip for.
Right, exactly. So, it's... And then we'll see what they get out of Guliev.
Yep.
I talked to a lot of people in Nashville. I've talked to you. We were at Dev Camp all last week. There's a lot of people really high on Mikhail Guliev, which was the other pick there. So I think there's a chance Newhook takes another step there. Martin St. Louis has had a big impact on some of their more offensive-minded young guys.
Yep.
But I still think there's a way the Avs come out still feeling pretty good about this deal.
The other side of this, we did find out yesterday, Ross Colton's arbitration date set for July 27th.
Yep.
Again, I don't think any of us really expected to get that far.
Yeah.
But
16 days from today.
A hard date of 16 days to get Ross Colton signed one way or another.
Yeah, and no, again, it was reported by Elliot Friedman. Rudo, I think it was even last week at this point.
Yeah, that they were pretty close, yeah.
That they're not super far apart. There's an organization and a player that aren't super familiar with each other in terms of how negotiating works and all that. So them setting an arbitration date didn't surprise me at all. I would be surprised if it got there, but also it's really not the end of the world if it does.
I would be disappointed if it gets there.
Me
Getting limits on the length of term in arbitration contracts. If you get only 2 years out of Colton because he would walk into free agency after that, that would be a little bit disappointing for me.
I would agree with you.
But again, it's not something I'm super worried about. At the end of the day, it's pretty normal negotiating in the NHL to do this, and historically, the Avs have almost always come to deals with guys that they actually want. So I would still expect the deal to get done. Honestly, I think it might not look that different from Newhook's deal.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe a little bit
more money
north because he's got that. You know what I just mentioned? Like Ross Colton is a guy that the Avs are bringing in to be a verified part of their bottom six. You need to have more dimension to your game if that's the role you're going to play. We've talked about that so much with Tyson Jost over the years.
Yep.
Where he realized, I'm not a goal-scoring center in this league. I need to figure out how to play along the wall, below the goal line, things like that. I think Colton maybe gets a little bit more than what Newhook did because of that.
Also buying UFA years there. So
right. But, yeah, I stand firm that I think it's going to be somewhere in the range of 3 to 3.5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 3.5 and below, I'm happy. You start getting up towards 4, it's a little expensive.
You better be getting some like term out of that.
Yeah. I mean, anything less than 3 years would be not good enough. Really, I'd like 4 years or more. But
yeah, I'd like to see a 4 or 5 year deal, 3.2.
Sign it,
5 years, 3.2. Yeah,
I would sign it today if you could get that. So somewhere in there, I think, is a realistic expectation for Colton. Not the main topic of today, though. The main topic being the East Coast. Jesse, should I ever believe in the East Coast being a decent conference ever again after those playoffs?
I was going to say, because it's so funny because there was so much conversation of the East is going to be so good. It's going to be a bloodbath. The only hope that the West has is that the team is so badly beat up. And then it was the 8th seed Panthers who made almost no moves at the deadline, did none of the loading up that everyone else did. That outside of that first round really had kind of with the way that it ended up breaking out. Obviously, they played very tough teams. Like
it's not like they were beat up really until the finals, but
which is the brutal irony for those guys that they held up the entire way and then they just completely fell apart.
Yeah,
physically in the final. But you know, man, I don't know. I think there's something interesting going on in the East, and it's centered around the fact that all these teams are loading up, and you know, you have Toronto at the top with their 4 guys, and you know, you had Boston at the top last year, Pasternak and Marchand and Bergeron, and I think everyone's trying to match that. You see what the Rangers are doing, and I really just think it's kind of led to this, like, you've all cannibalized each other.
Yep.
There's a bunch of weird money, weird contracts in the East now.
Asset poor.
Poor. Now, again, I'm not saying that these aren't good teams and that an East team couldn't win the Cup this year, but I'm just saying, I just think that they've like almost upped the ante too much in their own conference that now you've just got a bunch of teams that are like, what are we doing?
In too deep.
Seriously.
We talked about the bottom just because it worked out that we both felt like Detroit and Toronto were at the bottom of the league for their free agencies yesterday. If you want more on that, you can go watch yesterday's show. Today, I want to talk about the top end of the East a little bit more. Is there someone that really stands out to you? And I'll allow you to say New York, but I'm going to make you come up with another one.
The Rangers?
Yeah.
Well, see, and even them, they're another team that is so weird because I felt like they did their rebuild right, and then they got a little bit of early success, and now I feel like they
hit the turbo button too early.
Yes. And so I don't know. So I don't even know if they would be my high-end Eastern Conference free agency pick. I'm sitting here just trying to run through in my head I liked what Carolina did. If they add Erik Karlsson, I don't.
I don't think anyone should add Erik Karlsson.
So this is the weird part for me. Let's take a small little tangent here. This is the part that I don't get. Is we're talking about the East. Right now, it's Carolina, it's Pittsburgh. Those are the teams that you're hearing most closely tied to Erik Karlsson. And I really don't. I don't get it, Rudo. Like I understand 100 points last year, but
he had a great year offensively.
Recency bias at its finest.
Just casually ignore the defensive side entirely, and ignore his age, and ignore the value of his contract, even at half retained.
Right,
is still expensive.
Which if you are going to get San Jose to eat half of that for what, 3 more years, 4 more years?
Is it 3 or 4? It's too many.
It's several. That probably means you're having to, that's where the biggest premium is coming in that deal.
Yep.
Is what you're paying for them to eat that amount of money for that much time. And Erik Karlsson, he was an elite defender a few years ago. He's clearly never been the same since the Achilles surgery. The offense looked like it came back a little bit last year on a terrible team where he was driving almost all the offense.
There were a lot of games where the play was give him the puck and get out of the way.
Seriously. Well, then here's the other thing that I do find weird about Carolina being in on it.
I think Carolina being in on it is weird for a lot of reasons.
I agree. Wasn't the issue, not that they didn't like each other personally, was that you can't have a Brent Burns and an Erik Karlsson on the same team?
Not enough pucks.
There's not enough pucks.
And beyond that, Carolina's defense is stacked as it is.
Well, that was my thing with it. Was I said, doesn't this make their defense worse?
They went out and got Orlov already this offseason.
It makes you wonder. That's right. It makes you wonder. Is this the Cale Makar effect?
That everyone just needs that guy.
Well, and maybe I remember having the conversation last year with a fellow media member who is from the East Coast. And I was talking to them during the playoffs, and I said, is East Coast bias real? Is that a real thing, or is that something that we just complain about?
Sure.
And he said to me, Jesse, it's inherently real for the biggest reason of time zones.
Yep. They're all in bed when the West Coast is playing.
If the Avs are playing an 8 o'clock game, there's nobody, such a small percentage of hockey fans from the East Coast that are tuning in to watch. So you wonder, and I'm not hockey coaches and hockey departments and management. It's different than the casual fan. They're doing film, they're watching this stuff. But it almost does feel like this is the Cale Makar effect and a bit of a misunderstanding of what Cale Makar actually brings, where it's like, well, we need that offensive game breaker from the blue line. And yes, Cale Makar is that, but he's also one of the best defensemen in the NHL in his own zone.
He also makes $2.5 million less than Erik Karlsson.
And he's cheaper than Erik Karlsson.
Younger than Erik Karlsson. In his prime like Erik Karlsson. Healthier than Erik Karlsson.
Right. The Avs didn't have to spend assets to get him. He's a draft pick. It feels to me like, especially in the case of Pittsburgh, that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree. And even look, I get it. Dubas is new in town there. He wants to make a splash, whatever. You already have Chris Letang.
Right. Well, you already have Chris Letang, and you and I talked yesterday about a lot of the Toronto moves felt like very anti-Dubas moves, where it was like, hey, I'm coming in and I'm clearly doing things that go against the grain. We need a shakeup. It would just be weird for me to see Kyle Dubas go somewhere else and immediately go fundamentally against everything that he did in Toronto. Because as someone who is not into the advanced stats in the way that you and AJ understand them, even I know Erik Karlsson is not an analytical
It's not great.
Standout.
A lot of volume.
Yeah,
and that's about it.
And so it would just be weird to see Kyle Dubas move what would have to be moved in order to bring in a guy that does not fit his archetype.
You know, I do wonder how much of that is a new job saying, hey, you've got carte blanche to do whatever you want with this organization, and Dubas saying, well, now I can do what I actually wanted to do.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't have to go through 9 different checks and balances to pull off a deal. So I don't know. That to me is the part that'll be interesting. I did like I liked Carolina bringing in Orlov because that was an already stacked defense. I didn't love them bringing back both goaltenders.
My problem with Carolina is they didn't solve the thing. That's still their problem.
Well, and that makes me wonder why, if that's what they're trying to do to bring in Erik Karlsson, but I don't think he's a game breaker in that way.
It needs to be a forward, in my opinion. But I just don't like. There is nothing Carolina can do in free agency, to me, because the names just aren't big enough. You're not gonna get a superstar like that in free agency.
You know who I think would have been great? There would have been Duchesne.
I think he'd have fit well, but which guy are you turning to score that goal?
No, I'm with you.
Like
100%.
They just continually run in this cycle where they'll have a great regular season, I'm sure.
Well, I had it explained to me by an NHL player last year that that's a really tough team to beat night in, night out. When they're rolling into town, you're heading into Carolina
for one game.
For one game, they'll skate you to death and they'll roll over the boards and this, that, and the other. But when you especially start getting deep into the playoffs, again, this is an NHL player that told me they just don't have the horses.
Yeah.
They can't hang with the true elite teams because the games get tight and suddenly everybody is skating you into the ground.
Yeah.
Everybody's rolling, 3-4 lines for 60 minutes.
Yep.
And you have to find a way to separate, and Carolina just doesn't have that. And I'm with you. I do think it's weird that as much as I like the Orlov ad, it does just still feel like we're going to get this done by committee. And it's like,
no, you're not. Yeah.
Hasn't happened.
Well, you should take the committee down to Illegal Pete's and get yourself some delicious burritos after skating the other team into the ground.
Yeah.
Look, great way to fill up your tank. Fresh ingredients, all sorts of amazing stuff. Their queso to die for. It's the longest happy hour in town, 3 to 8 p.m. So you can go hang out, get yourself some margaritas.
My biggest complaint with happy hours is always they're like till 6. It's like, oh, right when everyone gets off work, and so we miss it.
I got here at 5:50.
Right. I genuinely not just as like an ad partner read. Like I just appreciate that they push a happy hour to a reasonable time.
You can get there at 6 and you have 2 hours of happy hour left. Actually,
dude, it really is. It's the best happy hour in town.
It is, no lie. So go check them out. When it is sunny days, get out on the patio because apparently we only get so many of those now. So.
Yeah, get out there before the patio gets washed away.
Exactly. 11 different locations here in Colorado, including one just a couple blocks from the DNVR bar, which, by the way, a ways out still, but August 18th, we're going to be doing a live show at the bar. So, if you're local, maybe come hang out. We'll say hi to people. We'll do
Thank you for reminding
show.
me of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's over a month away. We got time. So it'll be good. But yeah, come say hi. Also brought to you by the folks over at Pins and Aces, the official golf apparel merchandiser of DNVR. I don't know if you know this, but we have a golf event coming up next Friday. So, make sure you got your Pins and Aces drip on for the DNVR golf.
They make some good stuff, dude.
I do like their stuff quite a bit too.
Yeah.
We talked about it with Bird Dogs a little bit, but the Pins and Aces have the same materials where it's like, I'm not actually suffocating. Right. My skin can breathe a little bit.
Dude, totally.
You can get 15% off at pinsandaces.com with code DNVR. And of course, besides just apparel, they have things like the beer sleeve and the liquor stick, which you can put in your bag, bring on the golf course, be the coolest guy in your foursome.
Totally.
I prefer the beer sleeve myself. I've always been a beer drinker. So, grab a can, get some swing juice.
Some swing juice.
You're either golfing better or you're drunk enough that you don't care that you suck.
Doesn't matter.
Works either way. Again, check them out, pinsandaces.com. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. I want to go through a couple of different teams here. Starting with Buffalo. This is a team that I think a lot of people around the league feel like it's finally on the precipice of getting back to playoffs and competing a little bit. They go out and sign Erik Johnson for $3.25 million. And then they go out and sign Connor Clifton for $3.33 million. You're now paying essentially your bottom pairing almost $7 million. I'm not an NHL GM, but that does not seem like the path towards contention, does it?
You know how I see this? I think they're trying to do the Anaheim thing without the we're flipping guys at the deadline. Like, this to me struck me as we like our young guys. We need the veteran leadership to help get us over the hump and into the playoffs. Now, what is going to be interesting is what we talk about on this show all the time. At what point do you cross over from, yes, that is a valuable thing to have, to you put too much emphasis on that and you just went and blindly got players? Not trying to bury Erik Johnson here. I think Erik Johnson is still a third pairing NHL defenseman.
I agree. I don't think he's worth $3 million, but
I've talked to a lot of people who are big Erik Johnson people that fully agree with that sentiment. What? I couldn't believe he got 3.2.
Yeah.
So I like the concept of what they did. But again, when the Avs brought in Andrew Cogliano and then brought him back, we said, that's a great move. That's your veteran leadership. That's your one piece.
Sure.
You got 19 other guys that you have prioritized for different reasons. There's your veteran leadership guy. I worry that Buffalo got too concerned with that.
Overpaid a little bit for that, perhaps.
Now, they're still sitting at $6 million in cap space.
They're fine.
And I think those are both one-year deals. At least the Erik Johnson one is. But they were kind of puzzling moves to me, for sure, when you look at the dollar amount.
Fair enough. I just don't... I don't know that it pushes them forward enough for a team that... At this point, I'll believe in Buffalo when they do it.
I see, and Rudo, honestly, I don't think it... genuinely, and this, again, I'm not trying to be mean to Erik Johnson. I don't think it moves them forward at all on the ice. I think they are hoping we are going to have enough internal growth that it'll get us there. And these guys will be great locker room guys. So I'm actually fully with you. I don't think this moves them forward on ice at all.
All right. I feel bad because I want Buffalo to
Me
make
too.
the playoffs and not be the team that hasn't made the playoffs for the longest stretch of... Is it all major sports now? Are they the longest?
I know they're getting close. I think they're, 12 or 13 years now?
13 years now, I think. So that's tough. But you know what? Build a better hockey team.
Well, and they're also one that, for as much shit as Arizona gets,
Yeah.
like, holy shit, has Buffalo bungled this at every... Like, at least Arizona's been to the playoffs a couple times. Like, they made it interesting.
Is it not perfectly summed up by Jack Eichel leaves Buffalo and 2 years later he's a Stanley Cup champion?
Right. Yeah, it was that one, and then there was another one that just popped into my head. Oh, no. It was when they signed Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, what are you doing?
This is weird.
Why are you doing this?
This is a choice you've made.
Right. And they've just made a lot of decisions, weird decisions. They haven't drafted particularly well, high, which is crazy given how high they've been in the draft.
Actively drafted poorly.
Right. And really, there was even a little bit of, oh shit, did they mess up the Rasmus Dahlin thing? Until he broke out last year.
Just straight up figured it out. Yeah.
But for a second, it was even like, holy shit, they messed that one up too. And that's just been the craziest part to me, is that, again, at least Arizona's made it interesting a couple times in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, 11 years ago, they were in the Western Conference Final.
Buffalo hasn't even made the playoffs.
Hasn't even made the playoffs.
It's tough. Do want to move on. Excuse me. The team that did make the playoffs, the team that did go on the run, Florida.
Yeah.
They went out, got a bunch of defensemen to kind of fill the gap as they wait for Montour and Ekblad to get healthy. How much of that run was fairy tale fantasy hot streak? How much of this is Florida's here to stick?
Well, I think Florida is somewhere in between the team that won the President's Trophy and the team that went to the Stanley Cup Final. So I think they'll stick, but I do think that they are going to go with we made our huge changes last summer and it took us 9 months to settle into it. and we settled in by the skin of our teeth.
Justin.
Right. Just got over the line to make this all worth it.
Yep.
Let's fill the gaps that, Radko Gudas leaves. Like you said, Montour, Ekblad are injured.
Yep.
Matthew Tkachuk, I'm assuming he'll be ready by training camp.
I assume so, yeah.
But so I really do think it was let's take a deep breath. Let's let this settle. Let's let it marinate for one more year. Spencer Knight was at development camp this week. I know they are still really high on him.
Yep.
So this feels a little run it back-ish and more of we upset the apple cart a lot last summer.
Yeah.
Let's just let it kind of ride.
Fair enough. They did that Erod as well, which
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how much that really moves the needle for them, but
I mean, good depth add.
yeah, never a bad thing to add quality depth. Reasonable price for you.
Keandre Miller, 2 years, 3.872.
Okay, that's a pretty reasonable deal. Is he still RFA at the end of that? I guess I don't know.
I'd have to check.
Yeah. I don't know how old he is. Time has eluded me
Yeah,
at this
I know,
point in my life.
Nobody knows.
While you look that up, I want to go to the opposite side here. We've talked about Florida as the dream run. Columbus. A disaster of a year last year on a team that was not supposed to be anywhere near as bad as they were. They get Adam Fantilli in the draft. They haven't done a ton else this free agency. Is this a team to take seriously, or is this just a team somewhere in the middle?
I think there's somewhere. I think there's somewhere in the middle. Part of the reason why the Johnny Gaudreau signing last year, it was weird to me for several reasons. One, with all due respect to Columbus, it was weird that Johnny Gaudreau
Even wanted to go there.
Did this whole song and dance and then landed in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
But it was also because I didn't think they were ready to compete. I thought they were still a ways off. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was this past season for them. But I don't know. Jarmo Kekalainen understands his fan base, understands his organization.
True.
And has the courage to really take some heavy swings at times. And we even talked yesterday about how I love the fact that he said, we know we're going to lose some of these guys, but we think we have a good team. We're going for it. The year with Panarin, Bobrovsky, they add Duchesne. Like, I understand it. Adam Fantilli falling into their lap, I think, was a gift. I think they're going to be more competitive, but I still just think this team is a ways off. Zach Werenski is their only real notable defender, unless I'm forgetting about somebody.
I mean, they added Severson and Provorov. How do you feel about those guys?
That's right. Provorov, I mean, both of them, sure, fine. They're going to help make you a little bit better, a little bit more competitive.
Are they premier defensemen in the league? No.
I don't know what they're doing in net.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what half the teams in the league are doing in net at this point.
I don't think half the teams in the league know what they are doing in net. I think they're a more competitive team this year, but I still think they're a ways off from the playoffs. Easily their biggest acquisition is Adam Fantilli. I think he will be fun. I think he'll be exciting to watch, but
are they any good? That's the question.
I don't think they're a playoff team right now.
And I think that's the feeling about a lot of these teams in the East is that how many of them actually got better this offseason? And I don't think it's very many. Mm-mm. It's certainly not a Boston who, at this point, is Bergeron going to retire? Is Krejci going to retire? It feels like no matter what, they're going to end up with some holes in their lineup.
What are they doing with Jake DeBrusk? Is that still a thing?
Like supposedly they were still looking to move him potentially. I don't know.
That's an organization that they've had an unbelievable run since 2010, and then going on to win it in 2011. Like they've had a great long run here where they've been legitimate contenders.
End of it.
and it feels like may not be this season, but we are approaching the end of it there.
Yeah, it's just Father Time comes for everybody eventually. It's which is a great lead in to Tampa Bay. How much time is left on that clock?
So here's what's hard about Tampa Bay that I think separates them from everybody else is Andrei Vasilevsky.
True.
He's still in his 20s. And if you've got him, you're going to be competitive.
I agree that they will be competitive. They're a playoff team. I'm not going anywhere like that. But are they still a cup contender for real?
Again, and I hate this kind of cop-out answer, but I think if you have Vasilevsky, you can't take them out of that. Do I think they're as perennial a powerhouse right now as they were in 2019? No.
Okay.
I think they're a pretty solid number 3 in that division. I think they're a really tough out in the playoffs. And if, I hate the pun, if lightning strikes in the right way, that's a team that could go on a run. I don't like, with all due respect to JoJo, I do not like that as a backup option.
No. As an actual backup, no.
But, I mean, otherwise, you still got Sergachev, you still got Hedman, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos. Like,
Core's still great.
Core is still in good shape, but like I said, I think they're a pretty solid 3 in that division. Tough out in the playoffs. If things break the right way, you could see them on a deep run.
The thing is, an asset-poor organization that did a lot of asset recouping this year.
Yeah.
Colton deal with the Avalanche, obviously, they get a second-round pick. They also moved on from Corey Perry. They also moved on from Patrick Maroon.
Yeah.
You look at their free agency this year, they just don't have the money or assets to really do a whole lot of their biggest signing. I think they're currently
sitting about 3.5 over.
Yep, and they signed their biggest signing was Connor Sheary, I think, at $2 million a year.
Yeah.
So like they can't really make any splashes. They don't have a first this year or next. They only have a second in 2025. It's similar to where Colorado is at asset wise, but they're actively shedding a lot of their fringe pieces and not really replacing them.
Right. And I actually do think, and maybe, Rudo, you can correct me on this, but I feel like the Avs have a deeper prospect pool than what Tampa is currently sitting on in terms of assets.
There isn't much, and I would have to look, but yeah, there's not a ton of prospects in Tampa's pool to get super excited about. I say that, but Tampa consistently finds guys in like the 6th round, and
right.
someone you've never heard of will suddenly become a huge piece for them. But
see, but I'm more thinking of flippable assets to make your team better.
They do not have a ton of that.
That's where I do feel like, not by a wide margin, but I do think the Avs are in a slightly better position there.
I would agree with that. I think the Avs have a handful of pieces that are still flippable for that key piece.
Yeah.
Because they don't give up trades for 5 picks for a guy.
Right. And that is one other thing to keep in mind with Tampa Bay is, given what all they gave up, you can tell they believe in Tanner Jeannot.
Yeah.
And that they think that, okay, cool, here's a young guy we can, inject some youth into the lineup here and make an impact. But
that's actually, I do wonder, maybe not fully a conversation for today, but you saw when Tampa was at their peak, they would take anyone and turn them into a really good player. I think you see a lot of that in Colorado now, where everyone wants to go there because, that's a team that will get me my points. It'll make me money in the future.
Right.
Jeannot goes there, he gets 4 points in 20 games.
Yeah, wasn't great.
Not amazing. But anyway.
Wasn't great, Rudo.
It was not. On that note, we are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get 8 different kinds on tap down here at the bar, or you can find it in your local liquor store anywhere in the United States. Use the Breck Beer Locator online at breckbrew.com to find it near you. It's the summertime. You're all about the light beers right now, whether it be the Strawberry Sky, maybe the Palisade Peach, the Mountain Beach.
Strawberry Sky is a great summer beer.
It's so good.
That's a great outdoor on the patio.
Exactly.
Taking advantage of the we used to have the most sunshine in the U.S. Now we get, like 2 days a year, I think?
That's what it feels like,
what it's down to?
That's what it feels like.
I know. Could they hear you call me dramatic? Because that's what it was.
The patio is a pool now. That's just
yeah. Point being, take advantage of these summer days. I love a cold strawberry sky on a summer day.
Can't go wrong with it. Again, breckbrew.com. Check them out. Find them near you. And also brought to you by the folks over at the 2 Number. You've been in a car accident or a rideshare situation. If you're like everyone in downtown Denver and ride a scooter everywhere and crash into things, but it's not your fault, you can call 222-2222 today. Get a hold of Bacchus and Shanker.
I think we had the conversation last week that I think both you and I have been in an Uber that has been in an accident while we were in it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very weird situation.
Right. But it's also weird how common it is.
Yep.
And thank God for Bacchus and Shanker is the point.
Right. They'll get you your money, if you're injured, even if it's a thing at work where you were injured and it's not your fault. Bacchus and Shanker just want to get you what you deserve. You can call the 2 Number or go to coloradolaw.net. They'll give you a free consultation. They think you have a case. They will take your case on completely for free. You pay them nothing until you win your case. So go over, get what you deserve with Bacchus and Shanker. They've been doing it for 25 years. They're really, really good at what they do. Check them out. Again, coloradolaw.net or the 2 Number here in Colorado. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by whoever I want it to be.
Yeah, you and me.
Yeah, that's right.
Presented by us.
It's presented by DNVR. Got him. Got him on that one. I just don't think the East did as good a job as the West did in free agency this year.
So it's so funny because, Rudo, we talked about it at the trade deadline. Everyone was upset that the Avs, and by everyone I mean fans, our chat, it felt like every one of my Twitter followers.
Anyone emotionally invested.
Didn't like what the Avs did because they nibbled around the edges, weren't aggressive enough, didn't land any of the big guys. You and I talked yesterday about what we liked about the Avs summer so far is that they made smart moves. Maybe they weren't the biggest moves, maybe they weren't the splashes. Yep. They were smart moves. I feel like that extends back to the deadline. The Avs didn't love what was out there, so they made a smart, low-cost move, addressed what they thought was a need at the time. Tampa is an opposite. Or the entire East Coast, I think, was in an opposite
all
situation.
The way in.
Every single Eastern Conference team, starting the trade deadline, just pushed every chip to the middle, took on whatever contracts they needed to, shed whatever picks, whatever prospects they had to, retain salary, cap dump here, take on the full salary there. Yep. And we wondered out loud on this podcast at the time, how is this going to affect the landscape moving forward? And I think you look at this free agency, and I think this was the first sign of these Eastern Conference teams put themselves in a multi-year hole here a bit.
Cracks in the wall for sure.
Where all they can do is nibble around the edges very lightly, unless they're wanting to make really aggressive Golden Knight style moves where you're just dumping guys for free.
Guys, literally.
It's going to be hard for this offseason that we're currently in and into next season for a lot of these top tier Eastern Conference teams to do anything meaningful.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of this is a product of the flat cap over the last 3 years.
Totally.
But this is a year where certainly in the East, and I think even a decent number of teams in the West, feel a little bit stuck.
Yeah.
A lot of teams are kind of just riding this out the next year till the cap goes up at least once. And then you look at some teams like Minnesota who are saying, look, 2025 is when we can really start to
make moves,
do this again.
And really, I mean, I think, and that was part of what we talked about watching some of this stuff is like, gosh, are these Eastern Conference teams just really, 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 really hoping that it's going to be the Rangers or the Maple Leafs versus the Golden Knights in the final and they can get a little bit of a cap bump this year?
Right.
Because
get as much value out of it as possible.
Right. Like, I remember us thinking that at the time, like, these guys are acting like these Eastern Conference GMs are acting like the cap is about to go up this summer. It's not.
Yep.
And like I look at a team like Boston, and again, we're saying, 13 years into their run, are they maybe about to fall off? that's a good run. Who gives a shit? You got a cup in there and you went back to the final.
A team who's at the end of their run is a whole lot different than a team trying to get there for the first time.
But like Boston's a team that I think they could be hard up against it for the next several years as guys start to retire. They spent a lot of assets last year. They are still tied up against the cap.
Yep. That
could be a team that we could see take a significant step back over the next couple of years because of the way they've managed the assets and stuff. I really do. I think what we saw play out at the trade deadline so far this summer, we have seen some of the repercussions of that, mainly pertaining to the Eastern Conference.
It's just for comparison, there are more than half. There are a dozen teams within $1 million of the salary cap today.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's just it's been so hard, and it's part of the reason why I think I brought it up on a show last week, 2 weeks ago. I think the NHL needs to put in a rule with the salary cap being the strictest of any of the 4 major North American sports and the smallest.
Yep.
I think there needs to be some relief for drafted players. If you drafted this player into your organization, you developed them from a prospect to a whatever, you get a 10% discount hit against the cap. If you trade them and then 5 years later they come back in free agency, does not count anymore. That is now a free agent acquired by your team. I look at it as if this player was drafted, came up through the system, and is now contributing on our NHL roster, I think there needs to be some type of relief for that player. Because the reason the flat cap is obviously playing into this, but it's like almost just kind of like teams are like they've been able to shuffle it, but now they're just swelling to the point where it's like, well, there's nowhere left for us to go. We've had to pay too many of our own internal guys without the cap moving. Is this now 4 years in a row that it's not going to move?
To me, that just feels like a Band-Aid on the solution of actually just make the cap go up.
Well, yes, that obviously too. Like the NHL players, and I can only imagine, I can hear the eye rolls already. NHL players need to get paid more.
Yeah, I
like the fact that they are a mile lowest paid of the 4.
I understand the NHL getting paid less. I understand they're the smallest of the big 4.
Yep.
I tweeted about this yesterday. The entire NHL free agency is equivalent to 2 of Nikola Jokic's contract.
Yeah, yeah.
2 of one guy in the NBA.
And that's what the entire league has spent this summer. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And that's the part to me, I'm with you fully. You need to find a way to get more revenue into this league, to get that cap number to go up. So what I really do wholeheartedly believe are the most impressive athletes who put their bodies through the most. 82 games with a physicality that is on par with football. I
would argue maybe more than.
I mean, there's studies out there that would agree with that statement, Rudo, and I'm not going to go all the way down that
don't have
road.
to get in that rabbit hole.
Right. But the NHL needs to get more aggressive about marketing to that next wave. There was a suggestion that flashed across the screen about, how about this? Sell the wildly popular reverse retro jerseys for more than 15 minutes.
Yep.
Like, they need to get more aggressive about getting money into the sport so they can get these guys paid. The salary cap can start moving, and we can have a more entertaining product. You can add more teams to the league, and it's not going to get watered down too much. All of these things need to happen. My point is, and maybe it should have even been temporary, there should have been some type of relief over these last couple of years, because it just got to the point where, like,
teams were stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
The Avs haven't really added, like, go back to 2019. Who are like the massive game breakers that they've brought in
free agency,
or even via trade? It's like Devon Taves,
and even that was taking advantage of another team that was cap strapped.
Right.
Like,
the only thing that has ended up pushing the Avs as close to the salary cap as they are is what's happened in those last few years. Cale Makar got a new contract. Nathan McKinnon got a new contract. Mikko Rantanen got a new contract. Val Nichushkin. These are all their own guys.
And the Avs are honestly on the lucky side of it, of getting to sign them a couple years into this, instead of teams that signed it in 2019, the start of 2020,
expecting that,
and then we're stuck with what they had just signed with a cap that has not gone. I mean, it's gone up $1 million every year, whatever. But I do think there are some positives here as well to take out of this. Just the other day, the NHL announced a day with NHL games staggered all day long.
16 NHL games that start in 15-minute intervals.
At least some attempts to advertise the sport a little bit more.
And I understand I understand why people haven't liked the ESPN product. I get it.
Sure.
And I understand why people don't like the virtual board ads. I get it. This is all stuff that's good for the game.
Yep. And I would even go back to the All-Star game last year. I get it didn't really work. I get there were a lot of things that sucked about it. But the NHL is at least trying stuff, right?
I can appreciate that.
So they need to do stuff like that. I would love for them to look at the NBA and take some pages out of their books. Do something like Summer League is going on right now in the NBA.
Yeah, but do not do the in-season tournament. I don't get what the hell that even is.
I actually wouldn't mind them trying that. It's not my most favorite thing in the world, but things like that crush in college.
I don't even, what even is it? Is it just like a chance to give out a cash prize? Because like I read the explanation of it, I read the rules and all that shit. Most of them count as regular season games except for the championship.
Yeah, like the last one doesn't.
And so it was just weird. I also and again I am someone who was anti-play-in, and I for the exact reason that Gary Bettman laid out. Not this past season that just ended, but go back a year. 2022, the year the Avs won the Cup. The difference between number 8 seed in the Eastern Conference and number 9 seed was like 25 points.
Sure.
So Gary Bettman saying, no.
I don't care about the play-in.
But what I was going to say was even something like that, though, that's extra games, that's extra playoff revenue for certain markets. Point being, the Avs, the NHL needs to get more creative with this shit.
So we've gone off the rails here, but that's fine. We're in the off season. We can do this.
But it all pertains to free agency and teams being able to spend money.
I'm about to take us more off the rails, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
With these in-season tournament potentials, the reason why I think there's something there, look at the bean pot in the NCAA. It's not necessarily about the teams in them or the games themselves. Mm-hmm. One, it does the thing that the NHL has been trying to do for decades, in create rivalries that might actually matter in the regular season. And two, those are games that you go in and you say, hey, this is a regular season game, but we're charging double. People want to be at this. People want to be a part of this event. And that is what they should do, whether it's...
See, I like it regionally. I don't like a league-wide tournament.
I agree. It shouldn't be league-wide.
Yeah.
But what they need to do, whether it's an in-season tournament, whether it's a play-in, whether it's a whatever, it needs to be an event. Yeah. It can't just be, here's a hockey game.
Like if you did like the NYC Christmas Classic or something like that.
Amazing.
And the whole week leading up to it, and then
you play the
Christmas Eve.
You play the championship game outdoors on New Year's Eve or whatever.
Oh, dude, that would be sick. Yeah, do that for real. But like that's the kind of stuff that they need to do. And then you could have one for teams in this region that you do it in Vegas, and they're all regular season games and all that stuff.
Yep.
I would be with that. I do not like the format of we're going to essentially run a 32-team playoff in the middle of the season.
No. These need to be like, at most, it would be like divisional.
Yeah, because then I do think that would build some rivalry. There's a for real cash prize on the line.
Yeah.
And da-da-da-da. I like the NHL's salary cap because this a little bit of what a comment that came through talks about. I like their salary cap because it breeds parity.
Yep, I agree.
You can see the clear ebb and flow to the NHL where teams hit the top, they stay, then they drop down to the bottom, they have to draft really high, and they come. Like you can actually watch it. If you just go NHL.com, one of the few features that website has that I really like is you can go back to like the 1910s and it'll give you standings. Here's what it looked like every year, points, all that stuff. You can, if you just go track, the Detroit Red Wings, you can literally see how they've gone up and down, and that's what you want out of a salary cap. I think you look at baseball. I think you look at the NFL.
So I want to talk
you don't get that
about baseball specifically, because a lot of people have a counter argument to this of like, oh, well, the non-salary cap league, the highest paid teams don't win that often. And you're right, because winning championships takes actually getting value out of every single contract in your lineup. But you look at a team like the Dodgers, and they're perennial contenders just because they spend the most. They might not always win, but it's literally a free pass for them into the playoffs every single year.
Well, and it makes it hard for mid to small market teams because you really just become a feeder system.
Sorry, you're in the Dodgers division.
Right.
There's one playoff spot.
Right. There's one playoff spot available, and hopefully none of your players get too good because then they'll just go sign with the Dodgers in a few years.
Because the Dodgers will pay them $500 million for a decade.
And so I like that the NHL has this to maintain parity and that you can only spend a certain amount. The point is, the amount that the NHL teams can spend up to is not high enough. Like, it's just not.
Yep. I agree.
And I know there's going to be people out there that, oh my God, they make millions of dollars and blah. It's like, yeah, you're right. It's an insane amount of money. We have seen, I understand up close what goes into playing for the Colorado Avalanche. And there's a lot of people that think it's like, show up and play a game. Who cares? These dudes are more dedicated to their craft than anybody else in like any other field. They're and this isn't specific to hockey. I'm just talking about pro athletes in general. Super early mornings, several different workouts a day, high intensity stuff, physical contact sports, putting your body on the line, time away from your family. Like, there's so much that goes into it. The NHL doesn't need to go to a no cap system. You got to give these teams some more fucking cash, dude. To work with.
It's just the reality of modern sports is that, look, this is the price of doing business. And really, I think more leagues probably do need to look at the NHL's model of a hard cap, but that doesn't change the fact that an entire NHL roster makes up a sixth of like an MLB contract of a star player.
Right. I like this comment right here. Give teams $3 million in extra cap for the rest of the season if they win the in-season tournament.
I mean,
wouldn't that be something if you did like, all right, each of these teams in their divisions won their tournament, they all get $5 million extra against the cap. Suddenly you're licking your chops heading into the trade deadline like, well. I
worry a little bit about stuff like that because I do think you end up in like a MLB All-Star game when it actually mattered and decided home field for the World Series.
Yeah,
and
I always thought that was dumb.
Hated it.
Yeah, I always thought that was dumb.
But I'm willing to explore stuff. And I think the NHL should be too. They need to figure out ways to make more money and to market their sport better. And I think they've taken steps in the right direction.
The Golden Knights would sell out every year to win the in-season tournament. Like, we need this $5 million. We need it.
You'd get like super weird stuff where people pick up players for the tournament and then get rid of them. It'd be weird. It'd be very weird. But maybe that'd be interesting. Maybe that's something people would be into. I don't know. Anyway, we've gone wildly off the rails at this point. But look, it's the off season. We can do whatever the hell we want. That's right. That's how it's going to be. So we are going to wrap this show up. We are, of course, brought to you by the... oh, no, I already did this read. Never mind. We're good.
Oh, perfect. I was going to say to the last comment there, Pro Stock Hockey is somewhere where you can get sticks at cheap. They're all like used or pro specs that are, they're not like regularly manufactured, so they're cheaper. I don't know about $30. I mean, you're like, I hope this doesn't sound like, but I mean, like,
it's going to be tough to find.
Yeah, I mean, like Dick's Sporting Goods, stuff like that. Like, you can totally get, played against sports, stuff like that. It's kind of like general sports stores. You can get, lower end wood sticks and stuff like that. But
if you want the fancy top of the line stuff.
Yeah. Pro Stock Hockey is probably the best because it's heavily marked down sticks.
Adding zeros if you want the new one.
Right. Yeah. Pro Stock stuff. But yeah. I actually got a package yesterday from Bird Dogs.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah. So it was, they hooked it up, man.
Gonna be looking fancy in your Bird Dogs.
Always. I threw them on and out loud. I went, oh, these are comfy. Like just involuntarily just came out. Like it came out of my vocal cords, but I didn't mean to say it. They were just that comfortable.
Well, we're going to wrap this one up for the day. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us for another off-season day. Megan is back tomorrow. So
I think it'll be me and her tomorrow.
Have a fun show. And then we have a guest planned for Thursday. So tune into that.
Should be good.
Should be fun. But we appreciate all y'all, and we will talk to you on the next one.